Hello Internet, and welcome to part 4 of my Python How to Program tutorial. Today we're going to talk about tuples, lists, and dictionaries. And you're probably like, what the heck is a tuple? A tuple, quite simply, is what is called an immutable list. Now you're probably saying, what the hell is an immutable list? Well, I'm going to explain it to you. Over here we have, what you have to understand is most variables inside of Python are called immutables. And I wrote this code out here ahead of time just to save some time. Integers, for example, are immutable, as are tuples and dictionaries and floats and a whole bunch of other things. All immutable means is whenever you change the value of the integer, the location in memory changes. So if we run this guy, you're going to see over here in the output, whenever I first assign 1 to the integer, the location in memory is right here. And whenever I changed that value to 2 and printed out the location ID number, it changed. Mutable means that no matter what I do to change this list, the identification number for it and the location in memory is going to stay the same. So that is the differences between immutable and mutable. It's really nothing you really need to memorize, but it is a jargon Python term that comes up. So on to tuples. Again, immutable lists. And I'm going to create a tuple here, just a list of data. You can see here how I'm creating it. And you can put different types of variable values inside of a tuple, and it doesn't care. So what I did here was I created a tuple called tuple EX, and I entered in a string, my name, my age, where I live, and the state I live in. Now, if I want to print this out using a for statement, which I've talked about in previous tutorials, and if you haven't seen them, you've probably stopped watching this video because you're completely confused. So what I'm going to do, remember, this cycles through all the values stored in this tuple, temporarily assigning them to this, which I call the cycler, or everybody else calls it an iterator. Call it whatever you want. And what I'm going to do is just print out all these values I just entered into it. You can see them over here. And there they are. There's all the values that I entered into the tuple. Now, if I want to print just one of those values, I'm just going to use the handy dandy print function. Put in the function name. And remember, if I want the first element, I use element 0. And first element in tuple is my name. And that's it, because tuples don't have any other methods. So that is pretty much what they're good for, is temporarily storing information, and you can throw anything you want in there. Well, remember I talked about lists before? They're basically like tuples, except they have methods and they are mutable. So let's create ourselves a list. And the real difference here in creating it is you use a bracket instead of the smooth bracket, whatever it's called. I guess you can see it here. Or if you missed it, you can rewind. And I'm going to enter the same exact values into this guy. But remember, I'm going to be able to change them and manipulate them and do all kinds of other things. Now, I'm going to print them out in the same way as I did before for you. Remember, and you don't need to use I all the time. Somebody sent me an email asking me if this needs to always be I. No, it doesn't. You can see it did pretty much exactly the same thing as the tuple did before. Talking about lists now. And this is how you would append or add additional information to your list. As you can see right here, I was able to add joy at the end of my list quite easily. And I can also pull out values just like I did with the tuple. Got that right? Doing this on the fly, so it's kind of crazy. And you can see it was able to pull that out. Remember, the first index value is 0, so that's why I'm using 4, even though there's 5 elements in there. And if I want to remove things from my list, it's real easy to do as well with the remove function. And then I can remove in different ways. And you can see it took that value out of there. But I can remove in other ways as well. So I can actually use an index value. Again, still using the remove function here though. Except I'm actually going to type in an index location. And if we run it, You can see I knocked off the PA that was also in the list. Remember, this is a list, not a tuple. And if I want to insert into a specific index location, I use the insert function. Type in which index I want to insert into, and type in what information I want to put there. And if you look over here, you can see that I put it 0, 1, 2, and it moved Pittsburgh over automatically for me. List example 2, and I'm going to create myself another list. Again, this is some more additional functionality for you. What I'm doing here is just entering in some values or some letters and close that off. And I can use the sort function on this guy right here. And if you look over here, it put everything in alphabetical order for me, even though it was not inserted in alphabetical order. And if we want to actually list those in opposite order, just use the reverse function. Run, doink, it put them in reverse order. And you can also insert multiple lists like you do with multiple arrays if you know what those are in other languages. And I'm going to create one here for you right now. And now, skipped ahead there so you didn't have to watch me printing all that out. I'm going to print out to the screen a specific location, this multiple list. Printed it out with H. See, if we go 0, 1, 2, and then 0, 1, that's where the letter H is, and that's the letter H down here being highlighted. So those are all the different things you can do with lists. Now I'm going to show you dictionaries. They're immutable variables that have a key associated with each of the values within. And later on I'm going to go through and actually create real programs in Python. Pay attention to these brackets. There's a curly brace, because that's really what changes. So, and I said they have key values. Well, age is the key value for the number 35 as I define it here. Height is the key that is referenced to a string. Weight is the key that is referenced to 169. And that's how you create a dictionary. And if we want to print dictionary like you knew I was going to do, that's what you get. Prints everything out there on the screen for you. And if we want to get the value that is associated with the key, in this circumstance, I'm going to get the value associated with the key height. Do that. And it outputted 6'3" right out on the screen there for me. And there's a bunch of other little crazy functions available for dictionaries. I'm going to print out stating this is a dictionary. It's going to show my key valued pairs right there on the screen if you'd like to do that. Or we could just print out the values that are stored inside of it with the values function. As you see right here, see, it's printing out all the different values that are associated in there. And we can also, while we can't add, we can remove key value pairs from a dictionary, which is kind of weird. You can see there that it did indeed remove height. Now I'm going to show you something I haven't shown you before. These are while loops. I'm going to create two variables, and this is sort of like a for loop in which it performs the same action over and over again based off of certain conditions that you make. So I'm going to say I want everything that follows the colon and continues to be spaced in using 4 white spaces to be executed over and over again as long as the value for A is less than the value for B. And what am I going to do? I'm going to print A to the screen, and then down here I'm going to add A, the value of A currently, to the value of 1, and then reassign it back. So if this was equal to 1 originally, this would be 1 plus 1, and now A is going to be equal to 2. And there's shorthand notation for this, and it looks like that. And we can run it right here, and you can see it prints out all those numbers from 1 to 10 onto the screen. So let's clear this all off of here, and I'll show you a couple other things. A lot of times, this is the for loop. A lot of people want to use a for loop like it is traditionally used in other languages. Now, like, let's say, for example, you want to do something 4 times. What you're in essence doing here is creating a list that doesn't have a name, that contains the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and what we're going to do is print out the value of x. And if you do it, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is one way you can use for loops, which is a more traditional way that people might like. Or you could assign 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we're actually creating a list. And you could put list cycle here instead of that if you'd like. And a shortcut way to create iteration with for loops is what I have right here on the screen. Don't really worry about what this all means, but basically what this is it's going to automatically, using the function range, going to create me a list automatically that has the values 1 through 201 inside of it. So I can now go for I list cycle. And this is shorthand notation again, where if I wanted to print, I could actually have this for loop be all on one line. And you can see it's printing like traditional other languages 1 through 201. But you might ask yourself, well, what if I want to do odd things with it? Like, for example, I'm going to show you real briefly the if statement here, and a couple other things that I'm going to expand upon in the tutorial that follows here. But basically what I'm going to do is print out only even numbers, and I'm going to skip the number 101. How am I going to do that? For I in list cycle. So what am I doing? I'm using 1 through 201 again, like I just showed you previously. But I'm going to put an if statement in here, which you saw in the previous tutorials. And this is the modulus symbol, colon. And what continue does is, if this is true, you're going to drop down to continue. And what continue does is it says skip everything that follows here and jump back up to the first line of the for loop and continue onwards. That's what continue does. This is like else if. You haven't seen this guy before, like I said. But basically it's called elif instead of else if, but that's basically what it means. If it just provides you with another option to put another conditional if statement in here to check for something. What I'm going to check for is if the value of I, as we're cycling through, is equal to 101. And if it is, I'm going to use the break statement. And what that says is jump completely out of the loop. Stop doing anything. Don't jump back to the beginning like continue does, but instead jump completely out of the loop altogether. Then what I'm going to do is go to the else statement. This is going to be if none of the other conditions are met. This is where we're going to go. And this provides me with the option to print out all of the odd numbers because of this guy right here. Skip the number 101, and everything else that doesn't meet those conditions, print the screen. And this is what happens whenever I do it. It's going really fast. And this is actually from the previous one. But you can see right here. See, it's only printing every odd number. It's skipping the even numbers. And it hit 101, and that is why you don't see that printed here. In the next tutorial, I am going to take you through a bunch more Python things, which I cannot remember at this point in time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. I promise you it'll be wonderful. Till next time.